It'll be okay. One of these days, the worm will turn. And you'll be there for it.
You will be there for it when that day comes, Mets fans. Welcome back to Shea Station. It's episode 104. It's Monday, October 3rd, and the Braves have swept the New York Mets and have a 2-game lead in the NL East. Lots of emotions, lots of thoughts. Jerry's here in person with me. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jack, aka Jolly Olive. I think today's episode is going to be not the usual status quo. Don't think we'll do the game recaps. Don't think people are here to hear all about that because we were all watching.
I actually just don't want to talk about it. I don't want to recap. We can talk about it.
We can
that's
talk
what
about
we're here for. I don't want to go recap.
I'm not dissecting any of this.
I don't think I could handle it.
No. I don't think I'd want to listen to it either. I'd have no interest in that. I mean, there is so much to say and so little to say at the same time, but I just want to say that the Atlanta Braves are really good.
Boy, are they good.
They're just really, really good.
Especially right now, they're hot. Dansby Swanson is like the best player on the planet right now. Matt Olson is crushing mistakes. Still beatable team.
Yep.
But we had a combination of the Mets not playing to their potential and the Braves playing at the peak of their existence.
Yes.
And the Mets got their asses kicked. Dominated.
Yeah. I did not love some of the post-game quotes that came after the finale of, I thought we played well, things along those lines. And I know.
We'll get there.
We will get there.
Yeah, I liked it, to be honest.
Okay. I'm interested to hear your take on that after.
Because they played all right.
Yeah.
They played decent defense. They out-hit the Braves. They didn't hit for extra bases. That's the difference. But they had got to Charlie Morton. Should have gotten more. They should have definitely.
Well, that's the theme of the entire
correct.
series. Yeah.
But they put themselves in position. They left 22 men on base to 12. Like, it's the difference. But they played competitive, and they just got outplayed.
Yeah. I want to ask you, because you, in 2012, when you were in Oakland A, were on the other side of this. You guys were in second place and below for majority of the season. You played the first place Rangers at the very end, who were defending American League champions.
All of the season, yeah.
Yeah. And then right at the end, you guys were able to pass them and complete
that story. This would have been set up kind of like that season had the schedule, because this was initially the last series. In that 2012 season, we were down 2 games to the Texas Rangers, reigning back-to-back American League champions. Went in down 2 with 3 to go and swept to win. That buried the Rangers because they were heavy favorites, went to Baltimore in the wild card single elimination game
and lost
and got their butts kicked. They just wanted to go home. The good news for the New York Mets is this has been building. It isn't the Mets didn't lose this. They did. Again, I'm not going to downplay that they didn't step up at all, but the Braves just played amazing and overtook them. But there's 3 games left to kind of get their mind right, and then there's a 3-game series, so it's not like you're going great and then just crash. You have time to kind of pull up on the plane as it's diving. So you have time. I mean, you can salvage.
This next week is going to define this entire season. You know, I mean, this win total is still great. This team might win 100 games if they take 2 of 3. But it's going to be, how do you respond to an absolute gut punch to start October?
Yeah, so last night I had to stay after the post game and do a little bit of they do the Geico Sports Night.
Sure.
And so I had to stay for a minute. And the host, Eamon McEnany, was like, the Braves were Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
And they sent a knockout punch. They're the heavyweight. And I liked it because when the Mets are at their best, they're the Floyd Mayweather.
Right.
They're the best defense by pitching. Their offense is making you swing and miss. deGrom, Scherzer, and then Bassitt. deGrom and Scherzer, that's Floyd Mayweather. That's the tuck and roll. You're never going to land a punch. But they did land punches, and the undefeated Mayweather went down. Sometimes the offense is going to win. It happens. And your defense wasn't great. But they're very capable
Right.
of throwing up 9 zeros. Didn't happen. It stinks. People are mad and understandable, but they're still alive. There's still 3 games to get the whatever it is mojo out of the way and then respond. They've done it all year long. They've stopped the bleeding when they needed to and righted the ship.
Right.
You know.
I mean, do you want to talk about the starting pitchers? Is that where we want to go first?
I think that's fair. I think that's a good place to start.
Because, I mean, the offense was not fantastic, but I think most of the headline grabbing is going to deGrom, Scherzer, and Bassitt, who went 0-3 in this series with a 6.91 ERA and 6 home runs allowed to the Atlanta Braves. But I definitely think it's interesting because the talk on Friday was about how bad deGrom looked. And then today, it feels like he had a pretty awesome start in retrospect compared to everyone else.
Not awesome. He looked better, though.
Yeah.
After those 2, the back-to-back home runs that he gave up, he got angry and started pitching inside. He jammed d'Arnaud, and then from there it was like, this is my plate, I'm attack. He went into attack mode. He got sick of, because when he's going great, he literally can throw the ball here, down and away, fastball, slider. It doesn't matter who's at the plate. When he's dialed in, he does his thing, and he doesn't ever have to adjust. Well, he had to adjust, and he was mad because this was 2 games in a row where he didn't have his A location. So he pivot, and he did great as he started coming in. Then he threw a 98-mile-an-hour down and in fastball to Dansby. Dansby beat him. That's going to happen. You're going to give up a solo shot here and there. It was 3, but he looked very capable. So I liked what I saw from deGrom outside of the loss and the not throwing up a gem. Scherzer, a little different. He's scattering hits. He didn't look as crisp. Like he was so good in Milwaukee when he just came off. 6 perfect innings. Like that's the kind of performance people were expecting from both deGrom and Scherzer, and it wanted both, expected at least one, and got 0.
Yeah, I think the Scherzer one hit me a lot harder. One, because when you lost game 1, you're like, all right. I mean, this was going to be you don't beat Max Fried very often. Even with a flu, he still threw 5 great innings. The Scherzer one hit me over the head because he had handled them this entire season. In Atlanta on July 11th, 7 innings, 1 earned run, 3 hits, 9 strikeouts, no walks. He got the win. In Atlanta again later on, 6 1/3, 3 earned runs, 8 strikeouts. He got the win. He faced them at home as well, and it's just the fact that he had proved that he could beat them. The start at home, he had 7 shutout innings, 11 strikeouts, won that game too. I think that was when I knew things were going to derail completely because you don't win the deGrom game. The Mets notoriously don't win a lot of deGrom games, so that's kind of just an established fact. But Max Scherzer has been everything advertised this entire season. He had an ERA nearly below 2 entering that game. And the Braves just took great at-bats against him, one after the other.
He made a lot of mistakes over the heart of the plate.
Yeah.
A lot. Like the Olsen got him. He'd been, I think Olsen was like 1 for 10 with 6 punch outs against him.
Did Olsen homer in every game?
Olsen and Swanson homered in every game.
Crazy.
But he had guys set up. Like Olsen, he had him set up for that back foot cutter that he struck him out on 3 times, and he left it middle. He missed middle. He talked a lot about direction and finish. After he looked shaky in the first inning and they didn't score, I was like, it's over, because that's what happens when you're facing an ace. If you don't get to him early, you're not going to get to him because they get settled in. He never settled in. And that was the hard thing for me to see from a first ballot Hall of Famer who's had been in every situation. To not be able to right the ship, to dial it in, was tough. That one got to me a little bit.
But I mean, the full-on disaster had to be Chris Bassitt, who I had all the pressure of the world placed on his shoulders, but didn't even get out of the third, which was tough. And I think the yank was correct there for sure. Only 70 pitches, but I don't think he was getting any deeper into that game.
Yeah, I don't think that was a question.
Yeah.
That was hard for me because I love Chris Bassitt.
I love him too.
He's been a big game kind of pitcher.
It's been a stopper for us all year long.
Yep. And then he didn't have it. He was mechanically like Scherzer, and then he that was tough because he was nowhere near the zone. He had an RBI walk on the bases loaded. He hit Riley.
Yeah.
And then hats off to Travis d'Arnaud.
It's never going away. He's going to kill us forever.
Bassitt made a good curveball. He left it middle, but it was down. It was sharp because you get away with those sometimes because he had to throw a strike. It was 2-2. d'Arnaud just sat. Great piece of hitting. That's the opposite of what the Mets got. If you're going to play small ball like the Mets have been playing all year, and you're going to get a bunch of hits and guys on base, you have to have a clutch hit. Travis d'Arnaud had a clutch hit. The Mets really didn't have it outside of, Jeff McNeil.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk. Jeff McNeil might be the only good thing
we'll
that
get
came
to
out of
him.
the series.
We'll get to him.
We'll
but
get to there eventually.
Bassitt, and I don't want to say that the moment was too big for him, but I think the game sped up a bit and the weight kind of got to him a little bit. Pitching in Atlanta, that was an absolutely hostile environment. They were loud. That was a playoff atmosphere. That was the playoffs. And Bassitt's only playoff experience was in 2020 when there were no crowds. So, again, there's just some silver linings that we can cover at the end, but the Mets guys that haven't been there before feeling what it's like to pitch there or to hit there in those moments, you can't explain how valuable that is.
I was going to say the same thing. That is so invaluable going into what is now going to start the playoffs this weekend. Like, it's creeping up on them right away. And, I think you danced around them not being ready for the moment. I don't think they were ready for the moment full on. I think some guys specifically had standout performances. A couple innings got away from our starters, but I think collectively as a unit, this team hadn't experienced an environment like that. And if you're going to get baptized by getting that playoff atmosphere, Atlanta is a good place to do it because I don't think there's a tougher place to play for this team right now than Atlanta. Pitchers have often said that, walking off the mound or walking onto the mound with those flashing lights in the crowd is one of the most intimidating things you could probably experience in MLB. And you get 3 home playoff games now if you're the wild card team, which is looking like an incredibly likely possibility.
Only 2.
Hopefully only 2. That's the best case scenario.
In a good way. Hopefully only 2.
Yes, not in a bad way. But I think it was, this was Pete Alonso's first experience with this. This was Jeff McNeil, although he shined in it a little bit. His first experience with this. And I think, this is going to weigh on their minds even if they succeed in the first or second round of the playoffs because Lord knows if the Mets do end up getting to that final round in the NL, I fully believe the Braves will be there waiting for them.
Yeah, I mean, they looked like the reigning champs.
They looked like they were better than the Dodgers.
I think that can be an argument that you can have. They looked incredible. Like, lineup obviously dialed in. Their starters pretty darn good. Max Fried was great, went out 5 because he got sick. Kyle Wright was all right, solid. They're missing Spencer Strider.
Yeah, he's coming back potentially, though, for the Diaz.
Maybe, but will he be the same? Will he have the same kind of leash? Whatever the case may be.
Because Charlie Morton instead of Spencer Strider is a huge difference.
Yeah, even Strider would be right behind him.
Yeah, he would get game 2.
Yeah. And then, 21 game winner Kyle Wright would be their third starter.
Which is intimidating.
But their bullpen was incredible. Deep.
So deep.
Yeah. The Mets bullpen pitched fine.
I was going to shout them out later on when we were talking about the more
Lugo
positive
threw
stuff.
one bad pitch in his 2 innings of work, and Olsen hit it for a home run. He literally threw one bad pitch.
Everyone else besides McGill pitched very, very well.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and that's a tough pill for us to swallow because this is
a heavy McGill.
We love
very
Tyler McGill.
I thought that he could transfer into the bullpen and be a weapon. Still possible.
The idea makes sense.
Yeah.
In analysis, but not in execution.
Yeah, but the Mets got their butts kicked. So here's the final, and you wrote it down, but Mark Feinzan on Twitter. Let me pull it up.
Pull it up.
Okay. Great follow, by the way. Mark
Yes,
finds it.
I agree.
Since the Mets had a 10.5 game lead on June 1st, so that was the biggest lead.
Yeah.
They are 63-44. That is on pace over 162 games to win 95 games. That's
really good.
That is a damn good team. The Braves, since that time, have gone 76-32, which is 114 win pace. So
That would be the second best MLB team of all time
yes.
in the regular season.
So as crazy as it is that the Mets collapsed, I don't think collapse is the right word.
Choke is a better word than collapse, I think.
I don't think choke is a good word either. They choked in this series.
That's what I'm saying. Because collapse would mean you're not in it.
They choked in this series.
Yeah.
But over the course, this is why you play 162 games. The Braves won. They beat them. The Mets didn't fall apart and collapse. The Braves took it. So that's the difference. But who knows? The Mets are still very, very good.
I think that's the hard part for a lot of fans to remember this morning specifically.
That's what we're here for.
Exactly.
And you're allowed to feel the weight of the world. That was a rude awakening.
Yes.
That was a slap in your face. You're not as good as you think you are. Or the Braves aren't who you thought they were.
I mean, this is a Braves team that is now on their way to their 5th straight division title. They've been there before. They've gone through adversity. They've gone through their own playoff heartbreak. They lost 10-0 in the first inning of an NLDS one time against the Cardinals.
Yeah, it was.
It was a long time ago, but oh yeah, you were on that. Were you on the roster for that? Or
no, there was the. I was thinking of the 19 game decider, 2019, when they went into Game 5, and they were like, "All right," and then they gave up 10 runs in the first inning.
I think it was
Fulton-Avich.
Yeah,
Fulte.
That
But
was
tough.
The point is, they've gone through their own arc, and I think ours is just beginning. And I think, to shoot your way to stardom immediately is an extremely rare thing. And this team winning 98 games is some version of that for sure. But it was never going to be easy. And you were going to have to face the Braves the entire run of the way. And if you want to get to the biggest stage, you're going to have to face them again.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
So everybody is bummed. Again, you lost the ability to set your starting rotation up.
Which is
here's the two biggest losses, I think, from not winning the division. Again, it's not finalized, but the Mets have to sweep and the Braves have to get swept.
Which I don't think has happened this season.
The Braves haven't gotten swept?
I don't think they've gotten swept this season.
Okay. I don't know that, but it feels like early in the year they had to have because they were out.
Let's see.
But the two biggest things that they lost is the DS, the division series, isn't going to go deGrom, Scherzer, Bassitt.
Right.
And we don't give Starling Marte those extra 5 days to get healthy, possibly.
Yes.
Because his absence has been a glaring hole at the back of that lineup. So those are the two big losses. That's the part that's the worst. But if you're going to win the World Series, you have to win, regardless of where you are and when you are.
Right.
You still have deGrom and Scherzer set up to go 1-2. It's just going to be, in the wild card against most likely the Padres, maybe the Phillies. Either way, you have to beat those teams. If you want to win the World Series, you have to beat the best teams along the way. So
the Braves have not gotten swept this season.
It's very impressive.
It's very, very impressive. So wishful thinking, obviously, to still land in first place. But at the same time, I don't necessarily feel like it'll be earned because of how you played the past 6 months, but it will definitely leave kind of a weird taste in the mouth if they somehow still won the division.
It shouldn't have come down to this series.
No.
Because the Braves or the Mets had a softer schedule. And they losing to the Cubs, getting swept by the Cubs. I mean, you win one game there. There's just a bunch of that. When they had an easier schedule, they didn't push through. They've been,
and I'll counter that because I've been seeing that floated around a lot. And the Mets are very traditionally a bad September team, just because that's the history of the franchise. I want to counter that by saying we also had a ton of comeback wins this year where we were down and out and we had a low percentage of winning, and they still came back and won those games and made those games matter and stand up. And without those efforts, this series does end up mattering. The series does end up being the end-all, be-all. So there are two sides of the coin that you can play there. I think a lot of people are having fun playing the September side, which makes sense because those are games you should have picked up. You've proven that you're a winner at that point. Those are games you should win. But at the end of the day, all you had to do was win one game in Atlanta. That's what I'm more focused on. Well,
you had to win one game to give yourself a chance
to control your destiny.
To control your own destiny. Yeah, so that's a tough way to go out. But they're still very good. They still, everything that we were excited about is still possible.
Yes.
Scherzer and deGrom can very easily go out there and throw up 7, 8, 9 zeros and give yourself a chance. This is how we talk about, so our offense didn't produce great numbers, but they put up numbers. They didn't get shut out,
Did they have 12 hits in the last game?
They had 12 hits in the last game, I think. But if Scherzer, deGrom go up and throw up zeros, you win 2-0, and you're like, dang, that's playoffs. They lost by 2 runs every game, I think.
It was 5-3, 4-2, and 5-2.
Okay, so the last one was
But
3.
they went 8 hits, 11 hits.
That's what I mean.
Not like that's the frustrating part of the entire thing.
They could have won
They
still.
Yes.
But they didn't. But this is a very good team. That's why when you said you didn't like that we played all, I read, did you listen or watch?
What do you mean?
The post-game that you were talking about, the post-game interviews from the Mets where you I didn't like what I heard.
I listened to the clips of Buck and Pete specifically.
So Pete...
And I get Pete has never been...
But Pete also, if you read the body language, he's like, look,
You can see it in his eyes.
You can see he's like, we didn't play bad.
Yeah.
We played all right. And that's not going to get it done in a playoffs.
Right.
So this was the playoffs. And so that's the thing, though. The Braves played out of this world, and the Mets didn't play great, and they got their butts kicked. But even in getting dominated, they lost by 2, 2, and 3. And they left all the men on base.
And I think they scored the first 2 games, which usually means a Mets win. I think they had an 800 winning percentage. That was tough.
deGrom gave up the lead. Scherzer gave up the lead. They got it back. He gave up the lead again. And then Bassitt, I'm going to just forget that this happened.
Yeah. That's what they all need to do.
Yeah.
Short
there
memory.
was talks of Kershaw being, choking, some of the great ones. I'm gonna let it go for Bassitt. It's in my head for next time. If this happens again, then the moment might be too big. But you get a free pass. In my view, you don't get a free pass. But I will let it go for now.
One of the tougher things that stood out to me in this series was Michael Harris went 1 for 12 and Ronald Acuna went 2 for 10. And you were able to handle those 2 guys who have pretty much kicked your butt all year long. It was the other guys that killed you. The guys that were kind of cold entering, and they just showed up for Dansby is a different story because Dansby's just had an incredible year. But
good for him, by the way. He's an Excel guy and one of my fellow agency guys, so he's going to have a fun offseason.
Oh, yes, he is. I wonder what's going to happen there.
Because he's an Atlanta guy. Atlanta's notorious for signing up local guys at a discount. I don't think you're going to get a discount for this team.
Because they thought they might have got a discount for Freddie, and that didn't happen. So.
Yeah, well, that was a fiasco.
Also,
Excel.
Yeah.
He got an apology.
He did. I saw that. A formal one.
But we get a little off. I still, this is heavy. It feels somber. The weather in New York today is very fitting.
So gray out today.
It was wet and I wanted to listen to some sad music on my way in, but I didn't. I listened to some happy music.
I like that.
I got, it feels good. Every once in a while, you got to have a playlist that is going to bring you out of a little bit of a funk. So I played mine on the way here. And I'm still mad. I'm still upset at the team not at the team. I'm not mad. Let me rephrase. I wish they would have taken it, seized, and showed their A game. They didn't play their A game. They played their C game.
Yeah.
The starting pitchers played. They had. I'll give a C to deGrom and get a C. C minus. He pitched good, but he gave up 3 homers. So C. I'll give Scherzer a D, and I give Bassitt incomplete.
Big ol' F.
Yeah.
I mean, we
sad.
heard from the beginning of the season when the Bassitt trade first happened, we were in Arizona and we recorded that episode, that if the Mets were going to make their run, it was going to be on the backs of their starting pitching. And that case is still true.
Yep.
Like, this offense did what they usually did. They strung together a ton of hits. They didn't get the clutch one that they had been searching for. And, that goes back to past series, too.
They got it from McNeil.
They got it from McNeil. Straight up. And I think I'm a big fan of clean up McNeil, by the way. Putting him in those runners in scoring position situations. Dealing with what you're dealing with right now. Because
I'm with you.
We did clean up Mark Canha. I didn't love that. We did clean up.
Mark Canha. Well, let's go lineup next.
Yeah. I mean, what else do you want to address before we get there?
The bullpen. Here's some positives. Drew Smith looked incredible.
Yes.
He looked better than he did before.
Yeah.
Throwing that fastball at the top of the zone and not missing down.
Also in a big moment.
In big moments.
Yeah.
Trevor May looked incredible. This is the best version of Trevor May I've ever seen.
Yeah. Even to last year.
Even to last year.
Interesting.
I think. Edwin Diaz.
Through 4 pitches.
Yeah.
What a
Edwin
shame.
Diaz looked fantastic.
He did strike out William Contreras
So
on 3 pitches.
here's the clip that I want. This is for me.
Write this down.
The worst case scenario didn't happen. And as we were watching the game last night, I said, this could be the absolute disaster stamp on the Braves dominating the Mets here. Because Edwin Diaz, Timmy Trumpet, the Blaster Jacks narco coming out to the trumpets, right? William Contreras decided that's going to be my walkout song because he loved all of it. So they go into Braves country. Edwin Diaz, who's been dominant all season long, gets to face William Contreras. And William Contreras this is a worst case scenario, what could have happened. He homers off of Diaz, and he starts going around playing the trumpet like that's my song. All this buzz about you, it's me. Like the Braves, everything, we own everything. But Diaz shut that down. That would have been worst case scenario. I lived it in my brain.
We're a big silver linings podcast, I think.
We're trying.
Listen, I had that fear.
I lived that moment.
Did you?
I did. I was like, he's coming out to Timmy Trumpets. And
Genius by the Braves, by the way.
No, that's Contreras. It's not genius.
No,
do not.
For the Braves to save him for that moment and not start him in that game and then put him in right there, that is genius. It could have been. That's genius.
But thank you, Edwin Diaz, for continuing your dominance, because I would have just face down. I'm gonna take a nap for a while.
Game would have been off.
That would have been tough. I would have been doing the post game,
because that would have been the clip that gets shown for years
on TV on SNY. Like my body language would have been like,
"Hi, welcome back."
Yeah, thanks, Gary.
Yeah, Gary, that's a really good point.
So thankfully,
for a game break,
that would have been the worst case scenario. But Drew Smith looked great. Trevor May looked great. Seth Lugo looked all right. He gave up he didn't look great the first game, got away with a couple of things, but that happens.
Yeah.
And Diaz was awesome. Ottavino
had a good inning.
Yeah, Ottavino had a good inning. So the bullpen looked really good.
Peterson pitched too, right? Didn't he?
Yeah, Peterson did well.
Yeah, he did all right.
Yep.
So I'm no longer bullpen was never really a concern for me. It especially isn't now.
Joely looked really good.
He had a good ninth inning. Yeah,
he punched out Olsen.
Yeah, not bad. So this is
he
solid.
Looks good. Yeah,
for
so
October.
That's the silver lining. That the bullpen looks ready to go.
Yeah. It's just everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
McNeil is. I hope he wins a batting title. Not just.
Well, he's a point off now, right?
Yeah,
I think
man.
that's it.
He almost had 4 hits yesterday.
I feel like he should still get an apple, right?
Yeah, 100%.
All right.
Jeff McNeil.
Apple of our eye.
Absolutely clutch.
7
Huge
for 13,
moments.
2 runs, a homer, and RBI. Batting 4th, which is tough. And I mean, he got would-be rally started in pretty much every at-bat that he took. Worked great at-bats. I think I had never seen him choke up on the bat more than that final at-bat against Kenley. He rocked that pitch, too. It just got caught. But, I mean, if any of these hitters are ready for the playoffs, it's Jeff McNeil, which I'm excited for.
Nimmo looked pretty solid.
Yeah. Escobar stayed hot.
Escobar stayed solid. There was a couple of moments that, with runners in score position that he didn't come through. This is going to be controversial.
Okay.
But I thought Francisco Lindor looked fine.
That is definitely controversial.
Again, he didn't come through, but his at-bats, his swings, he wasn't. Hitting is really hard. It's the hardest thing to do in all
That's
sports.
a hot take. I think it's pretty easy.
Yeah, but Francisco Lindor didn't look lost. He took decent ABs. He swung at a couple of pitches that he shouldn't have early, but I liked his confidence at the plate. I liked his balance. He didn't get too big. Like you saw what Francisco Alvarez.
Yeah,
we'll
we'll
talk about it.
We'll talk about
just
the
in
kids.
all the at bats. He looked a little bit trying to do too much. We saw Scherzer and Bassitt trying a little too much. I didn't see that from Francisco Lindor. The results aren't there, which is all you care about. But from a baseball player perspective, I liked the at-bats that he took. I liked the swings that he took. I liked his demeanor. I liked what he said in the postgame.
I thought his quotes were great.
Yeah, yep. I thought he handled it very well. He didn't come through, but he didn't look overmatched, didn't look pressed. He didn't look like the moment was too big.
Right.
He just didn't come through.
Yeah.
What was his?
He went 3 for 13, scored a run, struck out 4 times.
Yeah.
So
okay.
it's not a great series,
So,
but also it's not like you're not doing anything.
The big strikeout in the third inning, I think. Yeah. Morton backed up a curveball.
Yeah. I mean, you could point to any of these guys really. With all of them came up with a big at bat at some point and just didn't come through, and that was the entire name of the series. Alonso, Lindor, Nimmo, even though he had a good series, had an at bat like that. Canna did as well. They had first and second at one point, and I think Canna, Guillorme, and McCann all just went down in Game 3.
That was So
it's everybody.
You want to talk Francisco Alvarez?
Well, yeah, let's talk about the kid.
Yeah,
let's talk about the kid.
The toughest situation you can make your debut in, but also you could have been this could have been the initiation of the greatest player of all time.
Yes,
you know what I mean. But I liked it. I still like the idea of putting him in because you got nothing from your right-handed DHs all season long.
Yes.
Ruff went down his neck. He's incapable of playing, so they IL'd him. And then subs Alvarez. They weren't expecting anything. They got what was okay. That's okay for him to do that.
Yeah.
He was really anxious, eager. He's 20 years old. He really wanted to impress, and he didn't, and that's fine. There was no issue with how he played. Obviously, it stinks that he never got a hit, barely put the ball in play, swung at every single pitch almost that he saw until I think he took a ball for the first time in his last at bat.
So here's what I'll say about Alvarez, because his very first at bat, he swings at the first pitch and absolutely hits a liner piss missile that just goes right to Austin Riley's
It
glove.
wasn't that hit. I think it was
95. That's not bad.
I mean, that kid,
Austin Riley has a great glove at third base. He makes that play. Turns into a double play. He rocks one to center field on his second to last at bat, just shy of the warning track. Good piece of hitting. Yeah, you're a little critical of him. It's interesting.
That's fine.
His final at bat against Kenley in the first game was one of the worst at bats I've seen all season.
Completely overmatched.
Kenley's
an awkward duck to face. He's got that timing, and he's nasty.
Yeah,
and he's also 7 foot, 450 pounds.
That sounds accurate. Yeah,
he throws from right here. He's very strange to face, and in a moment like that, that's a tall order.
And then he came up against Minter, I believe, in the final game in his last at bat. Worked a good count, got to 3-2, had taken the slider for 3 balls, and then swung at it on the last pitch, trying to find something to hit. So they were at bats that kind of looked exactly like what you'd expect from a 20-year-old kid getting a start in the biggest series of the entire season.
That's my takeaway. That's just kind of what you expect. They could have made some mistake pitches, and he would have hit it 5,000 feet.
Yeah,
but they didn't, and he didn't.
He also, what I really liked is that he still oozed confidence the entire time.
Yeah, he still is the same guy. I think he had a little bit of okay, this isn't as easy as I was hoping for.
You need that gut check.
Baseball's a humbler, man.
Yeah.
Baseball is a humbling sport. It's full of failure, especially from the offensive production side. 300 is 3 out of 10, 7 failures. So you have to kind of go in, and these are learning experiences for him. He's going to get a lot of playing. He might get behind the plate.
In the final series of the year, why not?
Here's the one qualm I've had, especially with this series. Why was James McCann behind the plate last night?
Did you see the clip of him setting up too early and Acuna signaling to Harris?
Yeah, I don't think that's...
Is that legit?
I don't think so.
No?
It could have been.
Was he just fixing his helmet? Like, I don't know.
Well, he's always messing with his helmet.
Right.
I don't think it was a signal. Didn't matter anyway.
It's got to stop. Tomas Nido has to play. He homered in one of these games.
Not just homered. He took really good at-bats.
Yeah.
And in that 7, 8, 9, he's the only guy. He stung the ball twice. Was it a Bassitt connection with him and McCann?
I don't think so.
Didn't work. Not worth it.
Not at all.
Nido has to be in there.
This Mets team has already proven that they don't care how much you make with Robinson Cano. If you're making $40 million a year and you're not...
That's a special case.
That's a special case, obviously. But I do feel like there is some sort of implication that we're in the second year of a 4-year deal and you still want to play the guy when you can. But I hope Francisco Alvarez gets behind the plate for at least one of these games in the final set of the year.
I actually, if
why not?
I don't think he would have in the greatest of circumstances,
right,
because the Mets would be ready to lock this up. He might
right,
catch the last game, but that would have been deGrom pitching. Maybe not. But he should get behind the plate sometime.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting. He's definitely got a hit. He's got a... I don't care.
Let me pose you something. If Francisco Alvarez plays all 3 of these games, maybe he DHs 1 or 2 and catches 1, and he shows out and he smacks the ball and he takes much better at bats in the Braves series. What do? Do you carry 3 catchers on this playoff roster? Do you just cut them and let them stand in the cover? You carry all 3?
I still think he's very capable of making this roster.
I do too.
I think he's on the roster in the playoffs.
Because I think I would...
What do you want off the bench if he's not starting?
Right.
If he's not DHing, he's not starting. You want the capability to drive in a run. Didn't look great this series. Didn't need to look great. He's still the same guy.
Yeah.
Show that you can put the bat on the ball. You can take some tough pitches in this series. Don't look overmatched, and you'll make this roster, because Vientos wasn't ready.
Yeah.
He could be a very good ball player. I like what I see, but he's not ready yet.
Yeah.
But Alvarez he is very capable of being on this team, because they don't have the guy off the bench from the right side. Never had it. Haven't had it all year.
I will say, he didn't get to play a ton this series. Dan Vogelbach took some really good at-bats.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And It sucks that you can't really play him against lefties, because those numbers against lefties are really, really bad. If you're not familiar with them, go look, because they're not pretty. I had to explain this to one of my family members. Like, why did they lift Vogelbach and put in Alvarez? I was like, just go look at Baseball Reference.
Yeah.
But
he's not... How's Josh Bell done?
That's it. So I'm so glad you brought this up, because I am seeing way too many people still talking about the trade deadline.
I mean, it's fair, because you saw what Raisel Iglesias did. He's been unbelievable.
But I like our bullpen.
I do.
I love our bullpen.
Like it as much as I like the Braves bullpen. They're deeper.
Yeah.
They have like 3 more guys.
Josh Bell has a 76 OPS plus since joining the Padres.
Yeah. And again, that's a new environment coming over. Could have been whatever it is. He still would have played both. He would have been lefty, righty, another switch hitter.
Juan Soto has a 799 OPS, which is considered bad.
Very bad for him.
But it's a 136 OPS plus.
Yeah.
Which is surprising.
I don't know.
I still think the trade for Vogelbach is one of the best trades any team made at this deadline.
Vogelbach has been solid.
Yeah.
He's done his job.
The rest of them, I mean, Ruff is going to be a story in Mets history for a while.
Canna was tough.
Canna has disappeared since the Philly game.
Didn't even take, like, you can...
Didn't look like Mark Canna.
Didn't take his at-bats, looked confused at the plate. That's why, when I said Lindor looked fine, I like Lindor's approach. Canna looks a little lost in the moment. And you could right the ship. The way they take their at-bats, how we talked about how Brandon Nimmo takes those at-bats. He looks the same.
Yeah.
Canna doesn't look the same right now. You have 3 days, you have 3 games to figure it out at the plate, to look yourself, to find that knowledge of the strike zone, find your swing. He was in defense mode.
Yeah. From the first pitch.
Yeah, so that was strange.
Since the Philly game, the thing that has concerned me is 8 walks to 25 strikeouts.
Yeah.
Which is not
heavy strikeouts.
Mark Canna.
Yeah,
that's not Mark Canna at all.
He's not locked in right now.
Also 13 hit by pitches in 33 games.
Well, there you go.
How does that happen?
He is a magnet, I think. He's figured it out.
So there's obviously a lot to say about this Mets lineup, and I think we've gone through most of it. Eduardo Escobar still had a good series. 4 for 11, double, walk, RBI. Good stuff. What do you do in these last 3 games?
It's a good. Well, is there a specific question in there?
Do you give Alonso and Lindor reps all 3 games to get them right? Do you play the guys that are fringe roster contestants? Do you work a bullpen game to see who's in and who's out in that aspect? Like, there's a lot to figure out in these last 3 games, even though they don't necessarily matter.
From a bullpen perspective, the bullpen, you give them what they need to be ready for the playoffs.
Yeah.
You give Drew Smith probably one more outing. You give Trevor May one more. Seth Lugo maybe one more. Edwin Diaz, if he wants to pitch once in this.
He's already proven he doesn't need to get regular reps.
You figure out what guys need, and you get that in this. Whatever case, whatever you need here. I think Taiwan and...
It's Cookie and then Taiwan, yeah. And then Trevor Williams probably game 3.
Maybe, but... Yeah, I think...
Because you're not going to do a full-on bullpen game,
I think deGrom might get another side in between. Normally he would have pitched the last game of the year to set himself up for game 1.
So if
the Mets locked it up, he would have pitched the last game of the year to get in that rotation. So he might throw a side, probably not in the game.
So we can do the preview for the National Series, because I think we want to save... We can.
I don't even want to do it.
Yeah,
what are you looking for?
I'm looking for the kids to play.
Yeah.
I think Vientos should get some starts. Alvarez should get some starts.
Vientos at third. Alvarez behind the plate in DH.
Maybe.
I think so too.
I think it's a good idea.
Vientos maybe. I can see him staying on the bench because he's not going to be on the roster. If you want to give Escobar a day, that could be it.
Yeah.
Alvarez has to play against lefties or righties. I don't care.
I think you should play him against both.
Yep.
I think you should maybe even play Vogie against a lefty and just see what you have. Because he could be just hot.
That could be a thing.
I just think that a lot of guys need a day.
I would be afraid to get him out of whatever sink he's in against righties. I trust Buck to make the right decisions there. And then as far as, Taiwan versus Cookie, is that even a discussion we need to have because of the wild card round?
It's Taiwan for me.
It's Taiwan for me too.
But now it necessarily might not matter.
Do either of them make this postseason roster wildcard round?
Wildcard round? I think you load up that bullpen and you load up that bench.
Do either one of those guys make the bullpen?
No, I would not try transitioning them right now.
I know Cookie's not making it for me.
No,
Taiwan.
Cookie might not even make my division series.
He
roster.
wouldn't make my division series right now.
Because those spots run out so quickly. I think we'll do a full episode on this later in the week. Really construct the roster and stuff like that.
Sounds good.
And preview like who's going to get your game 1 ball and stuff like that. So stay tuned for that, listeners. But yeah, I mean, we can preview this. It's the National Series. It doesn't necessarily matter. I think it's just all about calibrating your hitters and getting your rotation set up for what is going to be.
It'll be a
big 3-day weekend.
Cookie versus Taiwan. Taiwan has the edge, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He looked, the numbers weren't great, but he looked really sharp.
Yeah.
Cookie did not look sharp. Hasn't looked sharp for a while. So it's Taiwan if we need that 4th spot, unless something crazy happens or Cookie looks like a Cy Young candidate.
Yeah.
So that's a lock for me. Cookie's been good for us all year. So sometimes you got a tough pill to swallow and you don't make that roster, but. What else? What else are we looking for? Alvarez to swing and hit?
I'm looking for days to go by and get further removed from that Braves series.
I'm hoping they win 2 out of 3 and get to 100 wins because this is a good ball club.
Yeah.
They deserve something. I still think this ball club is capable of winning the World Series.
I do as well. I don't think one series can really change that. I mean, obviously it's a little bit of a damper, obviously. Like, Monday morning is gray right now. And this is probably the most somber podcast we've ever recorded.
Fittingly,
for sure. But at the same time, the roster's still the same. Everyone still stayed healthy the entire run of the way. You still have just as good of a shot. You've proven that you can beat any of these teams that you might face in the wild card round.
Yep.
And you've proven that you can beat the Dodgers. And you've beaten the Braves before.
Yep.
So for no reason should anything automatically be an end point for this team.
Yeah, again... Should have, could have, would have, what all that, and you feel how you feel, understandably.
Yeah.
I am most upset with Scherzer, deGrom, Bassitt, because that is the bread and butter of this ball club. That is the DNA that they come. That's the knockout punch, the separator between the Braves' offense and their advantages in power, and the Mets' power of pitching at the top. Good pitching beats good hitting when they're both head-to-head at their peak, and we didn't get any bit of peak from our three guys, and that's hard. But they're very capable of going right out there and shoving the next time they're out for the rest of it. If they show up and all three of them decide that they want to be Madison Bumgarner, would you be surprised?
No.
I wouldn't either. And they could carry you to and through a World Series victory. Very capable. I still think I'm not a gambling guy.
Whoa.
I imagine the odds are still maybe at their lowest for the Mets to win the World Series. I might, as a fan, throw some money into whatever app that you are.
The odds have probably gotten less favorable.
Yeah, because now you're going to get a little bit at the end, because Scherzer and deGrom are still there.
Yeah.
Edwin Diaz is still there. Lindor, 40-homer Alonso are still there. And you have a very capable third starter in Bassitt, in spite of what you saw, or despite what you saw yesterday. I still believe that he's a good pitcher and maybe the best number 3 in the game, except Kyle Wright might be.
I know, I was going to say.
Blake Snell, whatever the case. Very, very good pitcher, but you're very capable of winning the World Series. It would be an amazing run, an absolutely fun run to the World Series, but you need your top 2 guys to show up. It's why you're paying Scherzer the average annual value for games like this, for the playoffs. It's why deGrom is, you've had hope for him for the last couple of years to right the ship, because you know what he's capable of doing. And that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
It's still right there for the taking, but the Mets now have to take it.
And they're now battle tested too. And the test obviously didn't go well, but it's better that it happened this weekend than in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, having these 3 games to remember who you are, to get up off the canvas and get ready to go out there and throw some haymakers. I love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think they're still capable. It stinks. The Braves looked great. I feel a little bit bad for our friend Sal Licata.
He's
gonna wear it. He's gonna wear it.
That's a colleague of yours. How's he doing?
I don't know. I
Wouldn't
haven't
imagine
spoken to him. I know that he's gonna be hearing probably from Mets fans as well.
I think forever, probably.
Yeah. Well,
were you in studio when that bit happened?
I was not.
Okay. Because I feel like you would have intervened.
I think I would have. It's very unsal-like too, which is he's your typical. I don't. But he's gonna wear it, and rightfully so. You say some things on air, it's recorded.
The great thing about our show,
permanent.
we've been pretty careful this entire year,
as you should, because you say some things. And again, this is Ron Darling said something to me when I asked him about transitioning from the clubhouse to the booth, or from into the media side of things. And he says, look, Jerry, all you got to do, never say anything on camera that you wouldn't say to the player's face. And I still live by that.
Yeah.
Everything, I've been critical of players, but I would have done the same thing. I'm not being harsh on your character. I'm not saying that you're not working hard, unless you're not working hard. But I haven't had to say any of those things. The accountability, all that, I appreciate that. So I'm critical of Mark Canha and how he's looked at the plate, but I understand that that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
I think he's very capable of getting back to him. Bassitt, the moment, again, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt here. You learn from it. You can right the ship. I've seen you pitch great. deGrom, I think you can go out and throw up zeros. I still think you're the best pitcher on the planet. Scherzer, he made some mistakes. I expected him to after the first inning of shakiness, I expected him to throw 6 shutout innings of dominance, and he didn't. That's fine. I'm sure he expects the same thing from himself. Baseball's hard. I might be critical, but I still believe in the arc of this season. The team might win. They should win 100 games. And they have a chance to win the World Series, man. So this is still a good season. It's been so fun to cover. It feels horrible now because of the Braves being so close to the dominance. They look like the World Series favorites right now.
Yeah.
Especially if they get Spencer Strider. And they just made us look like their little brothers. You know what I mean? They just said, get here. No, this is our division for 5 years in a row. Go back down. Stop it. We still are better than you.
Yeah.
And so it feels like that. You feel bullied. You felt like you were the bully, and then you got bullied, and it's an ego check. And again, you're still a World Series contender. You're still going to be one of the teams that can win the World Series, and you still have all your pieces.
Yeah. Well said, honestly. I think that's probably a good place to land on. So Mets fans, similar to the Mets themselves, pick yourself up off the mat. Season's not over yet.
Correct.
In fact, it's going to get very real in 5 days, so get ready. And, get loud. Show up to the stadium. Go. This is going to be the first Mets playoff game.
Did you feel the atmosphere in Atlanta? That Citi Field is a home field advantage. Show up to the field, support this team, and make it intimidating for whoever comes into this, because the Padres guys aren't very experienced.
Yeah.
The Phillies guys, if it's Phillies, I know they'll show up.
Yeah.
I expect the fans to show up anyway. But if it's the Padres coming into town to New York, remind them that San Diego is nice and fun, and it's a fun environment. We enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
California, SoCal, cool. Remind them what it's like to come into New York. Remind them.
Yep. And we're going to preview that series later in the week, talk about what our rosters might look like, talk about what our opponent might look like. Lots of Shea Station coming up, guys. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Let's go, Mets.
For Jolly, for Jack, I'm Jerry. Let's go, Mets.
Keep your chin up.
Mm-hmm.